Welcome to Had to Be There, the podcast that allows you to explore the world's greatest destinations through the stories of those who have been there. Here to ignite the wanderlust within, your host and favorite travel planner, Kelly Acevedo.
Kia ora, friends. Welcome back to the Had to Be There podcast. I'm your host, Kelly, and this is episode 67. In today's episode, we are going to be chatting with Shaun Eli. Shaun is a stand-up comic who has performed all over the world, and he's here today to share with us one particular experience he had where he was performing at a show at a beautiful island country. It involves a hitchhiker, a flood, and a plane. So I can't wait for you guys to meet him and hear this had to be their moment he experienced. But before we get into that conversation, we have some news to chat about, don't we?
Okay. So much news from the world. So hey, put your sound up. You know why? I think it's time for our weekly roundup.
Yes, that's right. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Weekly Roundup. I'm here to bring you the hottest travel news and promos from Disney and beyond. So get ready to pack your bags and embark on some incredible adventures. Here are some of the travel highlights you may have missed last week. Calling all river cruise enthusiasts, Amma Waterways is offering an irresistible deal right now. Reserve select Europe or Egypt sailings, and you'll receive a complimentary 2, 3, or 4-night land package. It's the perfect opportunity to explore beyond the waterways. It is time to treat yourself to a truly brag-worthy vacation with Royal Caribbean International. Picture strolling the cobblestone streets of Europe's charming villages and historic cities, all while enjoying next-level thrills and jaw-dropping entertainment on board their wow-worthy fleet. The best part? You can save up to $500 off your airfare for Europe sailings departing in 2023. Don't miss out. Book by June 30th to take advantage of this epic offer. And hey, Alaska lovers, this one's for you. Celebrity Cruises is offering an incredible flash sale on their Alaska sailings. Book a sailing on Celebrity Millennium in an ocean view or inside stateroom, and the second guest sails for free. But that's not all. Enjoy additional cruise fare savings of $200 and $250 to spend on board. But hurry, this flash sale ends on June 8th, and staterooms are filling up fast. Don't worry, Disney fans, I haven't forgotten about you. Adventures by Disney is back with an extraordinary announcement. Get ready for Disney Parks Around the World, a private jet adventure in 2024. This 24-day globe-trotting extravaganza will take you to all 12 Disney parks, 3 Disney studios, and iconic landmarks in India, Egypt, and France. With limited spots available, make sure to secure yours as soon as possible. Booking opens on different dates starting June 12th, depending on your Adventures by Disney history. Pricing for this adventure starts at around $115,000. So contact your travel professional to learn more and reserve your spot on this magical carpet ride around the world. And finally, time to get ready for some spooky fun. Disneyland Resort is bringing back Halloween Time starting September 1st, 2023. Immerse yourself in the enchanting fall atmosphere with festive decorations, beloved characters in Halloween attire, and special experiences throughout the happiest place on earth. From the Main Street Pumpkin Festival to the transformed Cars Land at Disney California Adventure Park, There's Halloween magic around every corner. Plus, don't miss out on the Oogie Boogie Bash, a Disney Halloween party. This year it's bigger and better than ever, with rare characters, themed food and beverages, and thrilling attractions. Tickets go on sale soon, so mark your calendars. That wraps up this week's travel news and promos, but remember, these offers won't last forever, so don't hesitate to book your dream trip or reach out to your travel agent for more details. I will be back next and every week for another weekly roundup, where I'll bring you even more exciting travel updates. Safe travels, everyone! Hold on to your seats and get ready for an epic adventure. Welcome to a land of jaw-dropping landscapes, quirky wildlife, and adrenaline-pumping thrills. From the majestic Southern Alps to the stunning Milford Sound, this island nation will leave you breathless. Brace yourself for heart-stopping activities like skydiving and jet boating, while encountering adorable kiwis and mischievous kias along the way. Indulge in delectable cuisine, sip world-class wine, and immerse yourself in the warm hospitality of the locals. This is where laughter meets natural beauty, creating an unforgettable experience that will leave you wanting more. This is New Zealand.
Before the boat had hit the water, the whale's tail came up and caught her. All hands to the side, harpooned and fought her when she dived down low.
Shaun, welcome to the Had to Be There podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So before we jump in, can you tell us a little about you and help us to get to know you better?
I think I can because I'm the world's leading expert on me. I'm a stand-up comedian and I've toured on 5 continents, and absolutely New Zealand was the weirdest.
I can't wait to hear about it. Have you had the opportunity to do a lot of travel, maybe as a kid, growing up? What was your exposure to travel?
Well, as a kid, we didn't have a lot of money, so most trips, I grew up in New York, most vacations were driving somewhere. Driving to Cape Cod, driving to Maine, stuff like that. I did travel out west once with my parents on a bus tour, and once to Israel on a bus tour, and I never want to get on another bus.
That's fair, to be honest. Are you still in the New York area?
Yep.
Okay, so you didn't wander far from home. I like that.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Same. I've been in Connecticut my entire life. So you mentioned that your story today takes place in New Zealand. What brought you to this region on this particular trip?
I always wanted to visit New Zealand and Australia, and I had the opportunity. My father was a tax accountant, and it occurred to me one day that the best way to travel is to work anywhere I want to go on vacation, because then it's a tax write-off.
That's a valid point. I like it. I do travel planning on the side, and I love getting to write off my trips as like research trips.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a good tip. So this was pre-pandemic life.
Just pre. It was December of 2019.
Oh, no kidding. Just pre. Wow. And were you on your own for this trip? Who was with you?
Well, it was a solo trip in general, but in New Zealand, I was going to New Zealand, Australia, and Thailand. And the New Zealand portion, New Zealand has 2 islands. And in the South Island, there was a booker who was going to be my opening act. And I ended up traveling with him. He drove us around.
Okay. All right. So let's set up the story for us a little bit. How did we get here?
How do we get here? Well, I started emailing every possible place I could find to work in Australia as a comedian, which wasn't much because unlike Australia and the UK and the US, there's not a big established stand-up comedy business in New Zealand. The biggest city in New Zealand has about 500,000 people and has 1 comedy club.
Wow.
So and there are a few big cities, few other cities in New Zealand, and I wrote to them and somehow came across a guy who said, "Hey, I'll take you on tour with me." And I said, "Sure."
That was nice of him.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, he got to work and perform and made some money, so it worked for him too.
Yeah. When did you start getting into this business?
I started in 2003. I met somebody on a date who said, "You should try stand-up comedy." And basically, the short story is she talked me into trying it. And 6 years later, I said, "I don't want to keep my day job anymore." And now I'm a full-time comic.
Oh, wow. That's pretty incredible.
I like it.
Good for you. I was just at an event recently where it was not a comedy show, but there was this woman in the audience who was like interacting. And the woman told her, "You're very funny. You should be a stand up comic." And the woman was like, "I prefer to sit."
Well,
I was like,
there
okay to
are
see her.
comedians who sit down, but the only one that comes to mind is Bill Cosby. So maybe comedians should not sit down.
You're right. Maybe not the best example. So you had a very unique had to be there moment or series of moments on this trip. Take us through it.
All right, so he's driving me around the South Island, and the South Island is separated by a river that runs, I think, west to east. And we're in the south part of the South Island. And after a day, he said, "By the way, we're going to stop and pick up a hitchhiker." And I'm like, "Really?" And he said, "Oh, it's not on the street. She's from the internet, so it's perfectly safe. I do this all the time." And I'm like, "How does that make it safe?" And he said, "Well, her Facebook, it's from a Facebook group for hitchhikers in New Zealand." He said, "Oh, our Facebook profile is 5 years old, so it's not like somebody made up a profile just, to hitchhike and kill us." And I
Okay.
said, "That profile was her last victim.
You're
That's how it works. Do you not have television in New Zealand?"
right. Do they not have criminal minds here? This is how every episode starts.
Right.
Oh
And
my
they,
goodness.
and like we would be the last victims before they caught the person. But it turns out, he's a 20-year-old Polish backpacker who's making her way around, for a few months. And she's in the back of the car and barely says anything for 2 days. And it
It's
had
not
rained
creepy at
really.
all.
What? Yeah, I don't know how criminals work, but so it had rained when we first got there, and really, really rained. And I forgot where it is, but there's a place in New Zealand where there's a lake, and there's a tree growing out of the middle of the lake. And it's famous, and people take pictures out of it. There's just this big tree in the middle of a lake.
Wow.
Because the tree was obviously there before the lake. Well, we
Sure.
go there to take a picture of it, and there is the tree in the middle of the lake, but since the whole area was flooded, there were trees everywhere poking out of the water. So we couldn't even get close enough to that tree to take a picture of it.
Mm.
But so we're driving on Saturday, and Saturday is our big show on the north half of the South Island. And then Sunday, I'm flying non-refundable business class to Australia to do the next leg of my tour. And we're driving along, and there's no traffic, but there's no traffic in New Zealand because there's no people in New Zealand.
Mm.
So we're driving along, and the woman in the back finally speaks up because she was just on her phone for 2 days. She said, "The bridge is out because the roads are flooded." And we're like, "That can't be the case," because we would see cars turning around.
Right.
Well, there were no cars turning around coming the other way because there was no traffic.
Right.
So,
There were
so
no
he's
other
like,
cars.
yeah. So like turn on the radio. We hear nothing on the radio. We go to the website of a local newspaper and we're looking for information on it. And we're like in small towns. We can't find anything until finally we get to close to the bridge and the road's closed.
Mm.
And we find out from the internet that it's going to be 2 or 3 days, they think, before the waters recede.
Oh no.
So I'm like, well, the first thing we got to do is find a hotel. Well, you can't find a hotel because everybody who was there is not checking out because they can't leave.
Right.
And until the people who are supposed to check in don't show up and cancel, they've got no rooms because they think people are staying Saturday night, plus all the people who aren't leaving.
Oh my God.
So we're like, we got to find a flight. So we check, and he's driving, and we check, thank God for the internet.
Seriously.
Can't find it. There's like one airport in the south half of the South Island. There's one more flight left, and it's booked.
Oh.
We call, and they're like, no seats, whatever. And I don't think we can even get to the airport before that flight leaves. But then I say, okay, I think I've got this figured out. I have an idea, pull over. And he's like, why? I said, because we don't need an airline. there's just three of us, and frankly, we can abandon the backpacker. I mean, we don't know what I mean.
I have no allegiance to this person.
Well, she can stay there for 2 more days. Not going to ruin her life.
That's true.
The Had to Be There podcast is brought to you by Vacations by Kelly, where your host becomes your travel agent. As a proud affiliate of Academy Travel, Kelly specializes in Disney destinations and can help with all non-Disney excursions worldwide as well. When you book with Kelly, you're getting much more than a travel agent. You're getting a personalized concierge-level travel partner. And the best part? Her services are completely free. It's true. So when you're ready to make your next travel dream a reality, Vacations by Kelly is ready to make it happen. Visit hadtobethere.net/vacations to get started.
So I say, we don't need an airline. We just need a guy with an airplane. And he's
That's
like,
valid.
yeah. He's like, how are you going to find a guy with an airplane? I'm like, let me call flight schools.
Oh my God.
So because 4 of us, I'm 180 pounds. He's like 150. The backpacker weighs nothing. We don't have a lot of luggage.
Right.
4 of us could fit in a small Cessna. And even if the guy had to make 2 trips, it would work. So, but we can't find anybody. We call every place and nothing's going on. But we drive to an airport and say, do you have any more flights? You know, there's another plane taking off. It's full. Oh, it's gone. It took off. We're closing the airport. And
Oh, no.
they're like, and there's a bunch of people stuck there. And they're like, we're closing the airport. Everybody has to leave.
Wow.
Or they're closing the terminal. So we leave the terminal and we see a Quonset hut at the other side of the field. And I'm like, that looks like a flight school. Let's drive over there. So we drive over there. And he's already talked to his sister and like, she'll pick us up on the other side of the island and drive us around and then drive him back in a few days if he leaves his car somewhere.
Right.
So we've just got to get across. Basically, we got to get across a river. That's all we have to do.
Right.
There's no ferries. There's no way across the river. So we drive to the Quonset hut, and there's a bunch of people sitting around with their luggage. And I'm like, do you do charters? And they said, no, we're a flying club. We're not licensed to do charter flights. Mm-hmm. And he's like, let me call and I'll find a corporate jet. And I'm like, I'm not paying $5,000, $10,000 for a corporate jet.
Right.
If I'm getting a corporate jet,
I just pitched up a hitchhiker. You think I'm going to pay for a corporate jet?
I'm like, if I'm getting a corporate jet, I'm just flying straight to Melbourne, Australia from New Zealand. I'm skipping tonight. Like, I don't need
exactly.
So they say, you know, we're a flying club. We're not licensed to do charters. I said, do you do flight instruction? And they said, sure. And I said, well, you know, just as a coincidence, I'm an American pilot and I want to brush up on my flying skills and also learn what it's like to land in various airports in other countries, starting with the city we're going, starting with, I think it was Christchurch. So they say, oh, we can do that.
Oh my God.
But it's too windy because the storm had come through. It's too windy for our small single engine aircraft. And they said, maybe the winds will die down. But I checked the aviation weather and you get the weather forecast every hour. Winds are going to get worse. Oh. And I'm like, does anybody here have a twin engine jet? And he says, well, somebody's coming in on a Piper Seneca, which is a 6-seat twin. And I'm like, you see those Japanese people over there? He's going to take those Japanese people to somewhere else in New Zealand. And I'm like, I don't think there's room for them and us. But the guy lands and I run out to the airplane. I say, I'm not your passenger. But once you're done flying them, could you come back, pick up? What are you doing after this? He said, I'm going home for dinner. I said, could you come back here, pick us up, fly us over, and then go home for dinner? He's like, got to call my boss. He calls his boss. His boss says, whatever. I'm like, how much? And it was, I think, about $1,000, about $600 US, I think is what it was. $1,000. So that's for the 3 of us. Wow. And so we get into the plane, and I'm like, I say to the other 2, hey, I've been in airplanes, plenty. I don't need to sit up front. Why don't one of you sit up front? And they're like, no, we're scared.
Oh, God.
Right, almost all small airplanes have dual controls. So that's how you do flight instruction. They got 2 steering wheels, two of everything. So they're like, you're a pilot. You sit up front in case something goes wrong. What I didn't say to them was that I can tell by looking at the I've never been in this plane before, but I can tell by looking at the avionics that this is a very old plane.
Oh boy.
which doesn't matter if it's maintained, engines run. I mean, there's
Sure,
a
sure.
propeller to turn. But and it's a clear day. There's no problem with navigation. When you learn to fly, you can navigate by looking down. You're like, oh, there's the road. I'll follow the road to the city we're going to. It's not a big
Right,
deal.
right.
And we're only going about 30 miles or something.
Oh,
So
not bad.
we get in, and my opening act is complaining. This is not bumpy enough. I thought this would be a roller coaster ride. It's windy. This is not bumpy enough. And we land, and we go to the theater, and he has somebody open. He middles, so he's the second comic up, and then they bring me up to close the show, and I say, I hope you people are having a good time tonight, because God herself tried to stop us from getting here for this show.
Literally.
Yeah, like it was a mess.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I hope they enjoyed it.
Yeah, the show went really well, and then I got to Australia the next day. But oh my God, I was worried because it was going to screw. It was my first time in New Zealand and Australia.
Right.
I was going to screw up both tours if we.
Oh God. And after all that time wanting to visit there.
Yeah, and I have to say, New Zealand is a great country.
Yeah. Did you get to see any of the sights while you were there?
I did. I saw. I mean, basically, I drove around the North Island and then flew to the South Island. He drove me around.
Yeah.
So
Oh, good.
there's the steepest street, I think, in the world. I know people think there's a street in San Francisco that's really steep, but there's a street that's like this, a hill that's like this. And what you do is the houses are built, obviously, level. So if you tilt your camera, it looks like the house is
Oh my
sideways.
God, how funny.
But
Have you been back since, or do you have plans to?
there's so many other countries I want to see. I love New Zealand, and I'd love to go back. And actually, he ended up opening a comedy club right after that.
Oh,
When I was
wow.
there, he had just rented a building, rented a space, and was fixing it up. My last day there, he was putting the finishing touches on opening a comedy club. And I don't know what happened to it because, with the pandemic, he probably had no income for a year.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would
Wow.
definitely go back.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other places in Asia that I want to tour.
Yeah, true. So how many countries or regions have you been able to visit throughout your life?
Well, let's see. As a comedian, I've been to the Netherlands, the UK, Ireland, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand,
Wow.
Austria, Thailand, and as a kid, Israel, and then I've been to where else in Europe have I been? I was in Hong Kong before the changeover,
Wow.
and I've been to Germany. I've been to France a bunch of times. Switzerland. I think that's pretty much it. It's not that. Oh, Austria, and Czech Republic.
Okay. Impressive. Do any of those places call back to you? I know you have other places you want
Most
to
of
see.
them.
Yeah.
The only place I didn't really love was the Czech Republic, but
Mm,
I was basically in small towns, which were nice, and Prague, which I was in Prague and Vienna, and I like Vienna better.
yeah. That's a good one.
I didn't dislike Prague, but I just was in so many other places that I liked.
Yeah, of course. Let me ask you about some of your favorites from all of those experiences. Do you have a favorite food or drink that you've discovered while traveling?
Well, in Cape Town in South Africa, there's a restaurant. There's a cuisine called Cape Malay, which is Malaysian food with a South African influence, I guess.
Mm,
And there's a restaurant there that is the essence of Cape Malay cooking that everybody raves is the best restaurant. And you get there, and it's the, I guess, South African equivalent of a diner. It's got a Coca-Cola sign in the window. It's not fancy, but the food was amazing. And also, for an American, everything in South Africa is dirt cheap. So you could just order like 5 courses and just eat a little bit of whatever you want.
yeah, that's a good tip too. Which place has had the friendliest locals?
Friendliest locals. I've not had, I think if you're nice, people are generally nice to you if you don't act like an obnoxious tourist that thinks that everything is, Disneyland and everybody's there to entertain you.
Right.
And I speak some French, and I know people complain about the French, but I think if you visit France with the attitude I know you're better than I am, so I'm not going to argue with you. This is your country and you live it how you want, then the French don't hate you. If you go in thinking we saved you in World War II, even though that had nothing to do with me, and
Right.
every American product is better than every French product, and you people that take too many vacations and your cars suck, then you're not going to have a good time.
That's so funny, though. Do you collect anything, or do you have a favorite souvenir that you've picked up?
I used to bring back a shot glass every once in a while from when I went somewhere. And then I decided that's silly because I rarely use a shot glass for anything. And a couple of years ago, my postal carrier told me she collected shot glasses. And I'm like, I'm going to South Africa. I'll bring one back. And then I'm like, I'm just going to give her some shot glasses. And I just gave her a bunch of shot glasses.
Oh, that's so nice.
But I don't tend to collect anything.
Fair enough.
Memories. I collect memories.
I like that. Me too. Do you prefer to travel alone, or do you have a favorite travel companion to explore with?
I'm single, so right now I've got nobody to travel with. At times I've dated, I've traveled with whoever I was dating. I don't really have friends that have wanted to travel, not counting like work travel, because I've toured all over the U.S. with colleagues.
Sure.
But that's like driving to Virginia or driving to Vermont and doing gigs in Massachusetts and Connecticut, or, flying through Ohio and driving. It's not the exciting travel. It's just work travel.
Yeah. Not quite the same.
No.
Do you have anything currently at the top of your travel bucket list? What haven't you been able to cross off yet?
I would like to visit. Well, I'm Ukrainian American. I wanted to visit Ukraine, but some evil people got in the way of that.
Yeah, now may not be the time.
That's have to wait. I want to visit Vietnam and some other countries in Southeast Asia, and
nice.
Plenty of Europe. In Germany. I've only been to Munich. I've never been to Spain or Italy, so I'd like to visit those places.
Ooh, good choices.
Also,
oh man, that's a good one. That's towards the top of mine too. Shaun, thank you so much for sharing this crazy experience with us.
It was pretty nutty.
Where can we find you?
My website is brainchampagne.com, which it says right there if people are watching. And if you're listening, well, I said brainchampagne.com. You can remember that. And on my website is not just my schedule, but it's 50,000 words worth of jokes on my website, written, all original. And to give you an idea what 50,000 words is, a typical novel is under 100,000 words. So there's a lot of jokes on my website.
That's so funny. Where did you get the name Brain Champagne?
Well, I always liked champagne, and I thought of stand-up comedy as sort of like champagne for the brain. It's bubbly, it's fun. And when I started in stand-up comedy, almost every comedian who could, their website was just their name.com. Mm-hmm. And I also realized that, and I learned this from when I started out in comedy, nobody remembers your name. So at the end, I could say, thank you very much, I'm Shaun Eli. Doesn't matter. In 10 seconds, they've forgotten my name.
Right.
So if I have a memorable...
How does he spell Shaun?
Right. Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. The URL back then was $50. So I had to get every permutation of Shaun and Eli. You're talking about $300. Yeah. So I thought, let me get something people remember. And I've had people come up to me on the street and say, hey, are you Brain Champagne? So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. That's incredible. So I will include a link to your website, to your social media in the episode show notes. Is there anything else that you want to share with us? Anything else you got cooking?
I'm a clean comedian, so I don't just do shows at comedy clubs and theaters. I do corporate events, charity fundraisers, just about any place anybody is paid to talk. I'm willing to go and entertain. And excellent. I will say this, I'm much funnier on stage than I am on a podcast.
That's fair. Me too, probably.
And there's a video on my website to prove it.
All right. Well, we will definitely check that out. Shaun, this has been a delight. I hope that you will come back and chat with us again once you start crossing some more things off of your travel list. We will be here.
All right. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your support is to rate or review us on whatever platform you're listening. And if this episode left you feeling like you just had to be there, reach out to Kelly to start planning an adventure of your own. Don't forget to follow us at HadToBeThere203 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. and visit our website, www.hadtobethere.net. Until next time, get out there and make your own had to be there memories.